council meeting to order at this time, as that we will start with a public hearing. But before we start a public hearing, if everyone would please join me, we'll honor our country with the national anthem. There we go with the national anthem again.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now at this time, we will open the public hearing for the local income tax for corrections. I think we will follow probably the same course of rules as we did a month ago for our public hearing. Anybody wishing to come forward to speak on the issue, either for or against, would you please come up to this last seat that's available and introduce yourself and your address and who you may be with, or whether you're representing yourself, and we will give everyone an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes if you are representing yourself as an individual, or 10 minutes if you're representing an organization. Depending on how time goes and how many people wish to speak this morning, we can extend that if we see the opportunity to do that as far as comments. I will try to limit it, though, to an hour, so at 9 o'clock we will close this public hearing at that time. So keep that in mind if you want to come up and speak. Make sure you get up here early. With that being said, I would ask at this time anybody who has input on that to please come forward. Sheriff Gatton.
Good morning, Mark Gatton, Whitley County Sheriff's Department, Whitley County Jail, 101 West Market Street, Columbia City, Indiana. The following information will just touch on why a jail tax is needed. Most won't like what they're about to hear, but it's time to protect my staff and myself from lawsuits. Whether this lawsuit is from an inmate not being provided adequate supervision, or a Whitley County confinement officer not being provided sufficient jail personnel to ensure staff and inmate safety. Let's start by looking at the past. Starting the 2008 State of Indiana Department of Correction Annual Jail Inspection through 2018 State of Indiana Department of Corrections Annual Jail Inspection, 19 has not yet been done. Whitley County has been continually written up, not due to staff failure, but due to building design restrictions and inadequacies. I will speak on the different types of non-compliance write-ups warnings shortly. Before that, please remember that these inspections have been done by 3 different Indiana State jail inspectors, not the same inspector year after year. Let's look at the past inspections, and due to time, this will be a quick overview of the inspections. Since 2008, we have been informed for 11 years that we have no negative airflow cells for medical segregation. With the increase in medical issues with inmates, we recently had to put 4 medical supervised inmates into our big holding cell. This in return causes holding new inmates coming into the facility up front a problem. The medical staff and jail personnel work hard to get these inmates treatment and work for other divisions and work with the other divisions of the criminal justice system here in Whitley County to find alternative sentences or placements. But many times there isn't an alternative and they have to stay in jail. We also been told for 11 years that the Whitley County Jail doesn't have adequate staffing. One of the reasons is that we don't man the control rooms near the cell blocks. Just this last weekend, we had an inmate crack the big 4-foot by 8-foot glass window into the control room area that's unmanned. It cracked the first layer of glass, and the staff found it before any further layers could be cracked. We did have a data-driven staffing analysis done in 2014 by Bill Wilson. It stated at that time we needed 13 additional staff members / confinement officers. We gained some additional staff members, and I thank you for that, but we are still 11 additional staff members, confinement officers short. Again, due to time, I will just hit on some of the other violations that we've been dinged for. Population was overrated for bed capacity. Jail is overcrowded. Non-compliance on supervision of inmates. Classification of inmates once over 80% of rated bed capacity. And of course the non-compliance letter. Since I've been elected sheriff under Indiana statute, I also send over an annual report that my staff and I complete. I have placed in this report unfunded needs and projects. Some of these include cell blocks have needed painted since Sheriff Mark Hodges. Painting can't be completed because of population. We're out of program space within the jail. We have one visitation room for almost all programs offered in the jail and all the meetings that need to be taking place between inmates and other criminal justice divisions. Currently, we don't have a secure, good place for the new pretrial program that's coming. We need several rooms for inmate programs, attorney visits, probation visits, and other program visits. Mailroom. Currently, staff opens mail in the control room without a ventilation hood. If a substance comes in through the mail, we risk our whole control room jail being contaminated and being locked down. We have been through this, and we don't need another exposure of a controlled substance in the jail that could possibly affect probation, EMA, or dispatch downstairs also. We need a room with a ventilation to the outside for safety for all. Body scanner. I would love to go after one, but we have no space as they are very large units. If we had one, I feel we might have been able to stop the heroin exposure. Storage space. We currently have no extra storage space. We have items and equipment sitting out where if a physical altercation takes place with an inmate anywhere from the time they enter the jail to the property room or shower area, we have things sitting along the wall because of no space to store them. Things like restraint chairs, fans in case of a pepper spraying incident, clothing carts, inmate mats, barber chair, and this is only part of the equipment the jail staff utilizes sitting in these areas. As I stated before, I am against new programs for inmates that cost taxpayer dollars at this time. Why, you ask? Because I have an obligation to provide safety to staff and inmates under Indiana statute. You also have the same obligation under 210 Indiana Administrative Code 3-1-14, which states, there shall be sufficient jail personnel in the jail at all times to provide adequate supervision of inmates and to ensure staff and inmate safety. I'm not trying to insult anyone here, but I would like to point out that the statute uses the legal term of shall and not may. If any new programs start, we are still in the non-compliance at the jail under statute. I believe the jail is the only building or program in Whitley County that's non-compliant. Even if we do reach 80% capacity for classification of inmates, we will still be understaffed. Even if we get down to 50% population, we are still required under statute to have that number of staff to man those satellites and work the floor. If these new programs start and they get staffed before the jail, which has been understaffed for 11 years, we are again skirting the problem at hand and not addressing it head on. Also, what would we be saying to our current jail employees if you pick new programs over their safety? I have recently started taking photos of these above issues I've spoke about. I would also encourage and challenge each of you to read all the old inspections and to come over and see these issues firsthand. The jail is in its 32nd year of operation and has small leaks and maintenance issues and things that gets fixed on a weekly basis. Remember, they say a jail ages 3 times faster than other buildings due to the 24/7 usage. Also, Whitley County is only one of 9 of the oldest jails left in Indiana from the last information I received. That means there are 82 jails newer, or some that are older are getting new jails built at this time. And if you do the math, that only comes up to 91 before somebody calls me out. There's only 91 jails out of the 92 counties in Indiana. Ohio County does not have a jail. And I believe the last study we had showed there were 700 people in Whitley County's criminal justice system programs on a given day. Where do most of these 700 people start? The jail. Either on their initial arrest, booking, before entering other programs, serving county time, or going to prison. As you probably feel or notice again, I support the jail tax. The longer we wait, the more money it will cost Whitley County taxpayers in the long run. I've been informed that waiting to build a new jail for another year or other programs will cost 5 to 8% increase every year we wait. We all know that will probably continue to increase. If we build other alternative programs, we haven't addressed the jail being non-compliant. Whitley County Jail will still need staff properly, and we will be non-compliant until staffing properly, even after the programs start. Worst case scenario, we start these other programs and then the jail is still not compliant. We again can get sued. The jail tax is needed, and I'm not against other programs once the jail population is 80% and staffed properly. If the tax doesn't go or is put on hold for a referendum, I am more than willing to develop a PowerPoint presentation and go out and speak with the public and take the heat on these programs. But again, we still have to staff the jail properly. In closing, what you have just heard isn't what you or taxpayers wanted to hear, but the reality of the issue. I feel it's time to stop kicking the can, putting bandages on it, or temporary fixes, and face these 11-year-old problems head on. I'm not for making things easier for inmates, just want to provide what Indiana statute requires you and I to do. I know you're faced with a big decision, but whatever you do, please do it and design it with the future in mind.
Thank you, Sheriff Gatton. The floor is open.
Mr. Chair, I have Todd Samuelson from Baker Tilly here that the commissioners have asked him to provide you with some financial information for the jail tax, and I think he'd like to be able to be available for any questions that you have and maybe explain a little bit about the jail tax. Todd? Please.
Good morning. Todd Samuelson, a partner with Baker Tilly. As George mentioned, I'll be glad to try and answer any questions that you may have from a financial perspective. I'm certainly not an expert on jail operations, but in terms of financial options that the county has and how the local income tax system works, I'll be glad to answer best to my ability those questions. We were asked to first of all, put together some information that would illustrate the level of revenue that could be generated from the 0.2% under consideration. I was here earlier to present that information. I can go through that again. Subsequent to that, we were also asked to look at different options that the county may have regarding how to address the issues at hand here from a facilities perspective, and more so from a funding perspective. You know, as county government goes, you really have two sources, big picture, to consider for addressing a need for facilities. Those facilities can be funded if you have pots of money, and I know you don't at those levels, but in terms, if you don't have the money on hand, the revenue can be generated generally from local income tax or property tax. And so we put together a report comparing and contrasting those two funding sources. That was, did everybody get a copy of that? I brought copies.
I received the information on email, but this is the same report you're talking about.
Okay. I have hard copies if necessary. But I just wanted to illustrate a few things for additional information or to highlight a few things from the report, if you will. Based on current levels of adjusted gross income for Whitley County, the correctional and rehabilitation facility rate under consideration at 0.2% would generate just under $1.7 million per year. So big picture again, that is the amount of revenue that could be generated from the 0.2%. Obviously, a question that comes to mind for you all, and I'm sure taxpayers, is, okay, for 0.2%, what does that mean to different types of, or different levels of income? What would that mean to taxpayers that live within the county? And just to clarify, the local income tax is applied based on your county of residence, not where you work. So if you live outside of Whitley County but work in Whitley County, this tax does not apply. The applicable tax to that individual would be the county of residence. So this would be for residents of Whitley County. The 0.2%, again, generating just under $1.7 million per year based on current economic conditions, would translate, the average household income is just over $57,000. here in Whitley County, or median household income. So that would translate on an annual basis to an impact of around just a little over $107 to that median household income. Not sure how much detail you want me to go into, and I don't know if I'm under 3 minutes or 10 minutes, but I'm going to continue talking here shortly, but I do want to respect your time limits. We were also provided different scenarios or information in terms of, and this would be typical, we work on a lot of jail projects or correctional facility projects throughout the state of Indiana. And when you're in a situation as described, that there are needs that need to be considered for the current facility, typically would look at renovation of that facility or an alternative facility such as the technical offender facility that you're contemplating to help alleviate space at the current facility. And again, I'm not an operations expert. Or the third alternative that is looked at is, greenfield new facility to replace the existing. Now that third option obviously typically is going to be the most expensive, and the information that we were provided is that type of facility and the number of beds that would be needed for Whitley County. That project would run approximately $60 million in order to fund a new facility. There are other financing costs and other things to consider when contemplating that type of project that would take the financing north of $66 million in order to address that or to construct a new facility. Contrasting that with the level of renovations that may be necessary at the existing facility, the information that we were provided that would run around $15 million to address needed renovations. Again, with interest during construction and other elements of financing, that would be a financing of approximately $16.8 million. For the technical offender facility option, the information provided that would require roughly $12 million of capital in order to fund that solution. For financing costs, interest costs during construction, looking at a total project cost of about $13.5. So that gives you somewhat of a framework of 13.5, 16.8, and then obviously a new facility is much larger at 66.5. When we then look at the prospect of, and we did this a few ways, one to look at, okay, the 0.2 increase in the local income tax that you're currently contemplating, again, generating that roughly $1.7 million per year, would that be adequate to fund either of those three options? And if you looked at the presentation, quickly surmise that a new facility, the answer is no. That revenue stream is not adequate to fund a new facility. To fund the current jail renovation, it would be very tight, and my professional answer would be that's also not adequate to fund the renovation portion or option that was presented. There would need to be some alternative revenues applied to that scenario. For the technical offender facility, that revenue stream would appear to be adequate to fund that option. So again, that was on page 3 of the handout, just comparing the revenue stream that would be generated from the 0.2%, and would that be adequate to address the capital requirements that would be necessary. The alternative to the local income tax, well, before I get into property tax, the question may also be raised. The county has other local income taxes currently, and do we really need to consider a new income tax? Could we use what we already have to fund the improvements? I think is the essence of the question. And before answering that question, and again, I have had the opportunity to work in Whitley County for many years, I think I know the answer, that those local income taxes are not coming in with no purpose. And you have 3 currently. And the current, or the largest revenue stream is what is referred to as your certified shares. That's 1% of your current total local income tax. In the old days, that was CAGIT. For those of us that are having trouble transitioning to the new language under the local income tax laws. But the CAGIT, or the certified shares revenue that comes in, is significant at 1%. It's to the county, it's roughly $4.6 million per year. And that is a revenue stream that certainly could fund the technical offender facility or renovations to the jail. But I would offer that those dollars are really not available because they are currently being used to fund the budget that the county has, and that for operations of all types of county requirements. So if you were to redirect or contemplate redirecting that revenue stream, then you're putting other services at risk that are currently being funded from that revenue source. The same analysis would apply to the economic development component of your local income tax. Again, we used to call this CEDIT or EDIT. That currently is generating, and that's at the same rate that is being contemplated for the correctional rate of 0.2. So it generates roughly the same revenue stream that we're estimating for the 0.2. So the same answer would apply. Maybe there would be enough to fund the renovation component, certainly not enough to fund a new facility, and it could fund the technical offender facility. But again, I would offer that revenue stream is also currently being utilized for other functions throughout the county, and we did provide some information within the report of how much of that revenue stream is currently being utilized by the county in funding existing budgets. And the final piece of your local income tax that could be considered is your public safety local income tax. And again, that piece is being utilized to fund operational elements of not only the corrections, but also emergency management and those types of services being provided. So the information, we did look at those revenue streams to anticipate questions, if you will, of what is being, how is the local income tax currently being utilized. If you were to redirect those dollars, that could be a potential solution, but then it creates other questions of how to replace that revenue stream in other operations of the county that are currently being utilized. And I would offer that one potential answer would be, well, we get new or increases in our maximum levy every year to address really the purpose of your maximum levy increases each year is to keep up with inflationary items within your existing budget. It really historically does not provide a whole lot of revenue for replacement or new requirements that the county may have. Do you have a question, sir?
Todd, just remain consistent for everybody that is watching on YouTube or here in the audience. Can you just give us the number on the percentage on the LOIT tax, as you did with the other two, and what that percentage is? Do you have that? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. So the LOIT, or the local income tax that is currently in place, there again, I've been talking about, there's actually 4 components of your current local income tax. I touched on 3, so I'll go over those again. And let me just back up. I will get to your answer. Let me just back up here a second that historically these were all kept separate. But now, as of 2 years ago, the local income tax legislation was all revamped. So now it is referred to as one LIT, or local income tax rate. Okay? So within the LIT, there are 2 areas within your local income tax. One, there is a component for property tax replacement, okay? Or property tax relief rate, as it's called. And currently, in your local income tax, that rate is 0.0329%. 0.0329. The maximum property tax relief rate is 1.25%. So the county is well below the maximum rate on property tax relief. So that's its own column, its own ceiling, if you will, on what that property tax relief rate can be. The 3 I was referring to are in the other column, of what's referred to as the expenditure rate within the total local income tax. So the expenditure rate has a maximum of 2.5% for all counties throughout the state. The total expenditure rate that Whitley County has is 1.45%. So again, well below the maximum. You're below it by 1.05% currently. The components of that expenditure rate, which I was referring to, the certified shares is at 1%. The economic development or edit is at 0.2, and the public safety is at 0.25. I sometimes anticipate questions, so I'm going to keep talking. How do we compare? Is typically a question that may come up, so I'll just go ahead and address that. So again, the total then of 1.4829% is what Whitley County, where you currently sit on your local income tax. Again, there are 92 counties, and now every county does have a local income tax. That was not the case a few years ago. But at your current rate of 1.4829%, how do I want to put this? You're 64th. In other words, there are 63 counties that have a higher local income tax currently than what Whitley County has. Mathematically, that would mean there are 28 that have a lower income tax. Did I do that right? Than Whitley County. The average local income tax in the state of Indiana for all 92 counties is 1.72%. So again, you're sitting at 1.48 mathematically, considering the 0.2% that's before you today. The total would be 1.6829. Again, that would be below the average of counties throughout the state of Indiana. And again, illustrative, if the rate were approved and your rate goes to 1.6829, then counties would be 51st, if that's important. That in terms of local, and I think there are different ways that people look at this. Obviously, what would potentially taxpayer impact be, but also I saw John earlier. I mean, there's an economic development element to all of this in terms of how does our local income tax stack up to other counties, and are we going to have migration or those types of things. So just again, for your information, I thought I would provide that as well. So finally, in terms of looking at, again, those were local income. I think it would be a real challenge to fund the improvements that are on the, whether it's renovation, the new technical vendor option, or a new facility. Your current local income tax rate structure, knowing how that's currently being utilized within your existing budget, I think it would be a real stretch to suggest that those revenues can be redirected without having impacts throughout the county. So looking at it from, okay, well, what if we were to contemplate not a local income tax, but rather a local property tax to fund the improvements? That's certainly something that the county could contemplate. I'll start with the new facility. That level of project would avail itself to referendum. I've yet to see a county jail project approved through a referendum. And I'm not somebody that tries to predict the future, but I'm just giving you our experience throughout Indiana. It's just a tough sell, quite honestly, to have taxpayers vote in a property tax increase at the ballots to fund county jails. Just haven't seen that happen yet. Most county jail construction projects, and it's reflected in the income tax rate structures throughout Indiana, are addressed through local income tax, not through property tax. I'm not evaluating that's right or wrong. That's just the way it is. So if that were to be approved through a referendum, depending on level of home value, a new facility would have a property tax impact on the average home value about $172 a year. If you had 100 acres of ag property, it would be about $516 per year. if you had a commercial building or operation as a business owner, for every $100,000 of commercial value, it'd be about $330 per year. So a new facility on a property, it would be a rate on your property tax here in Whitley County of around 33 cents for a new facility. For the technical offender facility, that would be a rate on the property taxes of just under 7 cents per hundred. So again, it's really hard to evaluate an average property tax owner or value versus an average income tax, because it could be the same homestead, but I would offer it's probably not. Most are either income rich, if you will, or property rich. So we all know the only fair tax is one that somebody else pays. So it just depended upon whether you're earning income or have a lot of property, which impact may be more palatable. My final point on property tax funding, if that were a consideration for this type of improvement, we did not take the time, incur the expense of what would be the circuit breaker impact of pursuing a property tax funded scenario. I do think, given the history here in Indiana, that it would be difficult to have a new facility approved through a referendum. So our assumption would be on property taxes that it would be, again, the technical offender option or the jail renovation at the levels that we're seeing here would not qualify, if that's the right term, for a referendum, because the dollar amount is lower than what the threshold would be that you have to go to referendum. So pursuing funding in that way, I don't want to take this too far into the weeds, but an increase in the local property tax to fund this type of capital need, when you have an increase in the property tax rate to do that, the other consideration I think that needs to be thought about is that would also increase the revenue loss to the county from the circuit breaker. So the county actually would have less money for operations because the dollars needed to fund the improvements, some of those would be redirected from what is currently available from property taxes to operations. That's just how the circuit breaker works. And it would also take funding away from cities and towns in the county, as well as the school corporations. I feel like my time is up.
Your time is up, sir.
Can I ask that question?
Absolutely.
Going back to what we call cadged
Yes, sir.
and seated, okay? The number you gave is like 4 million. Both of those funds have to be shared to all the political subdivisions. Would this new tax have to be shared, or will it stay absolutely with the county?
Yeah, so I should have covered that. For the three within the expenditure rate, whether it's cadged, seated, I'll call them what we all know them by, the cadged, seated, and public safety, each of those local income taxes are shared. They're shared differently. The cadged is shared by the county and all other governmental units within the county, including townships. The economic development or seated and the public safety is shared by the county as well as each city and town within the county or each incorporated unit. The rate contemplated here this morning, the correctional rehabilitation rate, is not shared. The 0.2% would come strictly to the county. That's not a decision by this council, that is how the statute is written.
Any other questions? Sheriff?
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to really look at the packet. You're saying 60 million. I just came back from the National Sheriff Association and spent most of my continued education on overcrowding the jails, new jails. The average figure is $100,000 a bed. So are you talking about a 600-bed facility here?
These were numbers provided to us, but, so I'm not sure how many beds were contemplated in that.
We've actually talked to the different construction people that are constructing jails at this point right now, and we were looking at like Vigo County their actual, their initial thoughts that they were going to have a $40 million facility, and I think that's 250 beds. I think they're up to 80 million at this point. That $100,000 figure, I think, anymore is really inflated now.
We did the initial study for the county. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about construction costs. We're actually working on Fulton right now. It looks like that will be 215 beds, in that, right at that. Construction manager came back just the other day and had a number that was about 22 million, so 100,000 a bed is not very far off. 100, 110 in today's market, but I'm telling you, it's going up. That same, we bid a job a year ago, just to give you an example. 246 beds in Decatur County, southern Indiana, and it was 19.5 million. So if the metric is correct, we've gone up about 13 or 14% construction cost in the last 12 months, which is just huge. It's just, it has to do with the number of justice projects in the marketplace and capacity for the marketplace to produce. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions you have?
Yep.
Can anyone tell us if the study has been done to project what size our new jail needs to be? How many beds?
And I don't know if it has or not. I hate to get too far sideways on the issue at hand, although those all issues are all very relevant to what we're talking about, but I think that getting back centered on the text itself and how we want to proceed, I think would be more useful of our time here today. So the public hearing is still open. I would call anybody else forward that would care to put in information, either for or against. This is your last call. And I'm seeing no one rush forward, so I will call the public meeting, or the public hearing portion of this morning to an end and close it. And at this time, I will open the Whitley County Council meeting of Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019, and call it to order. And we will start with the first item on the amended agenda today, ordinance 2019-06, as presented on the new local income tax. And that is titled 2019-06.
I make a motion that we approve 2019-06.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
As much as I don't like to raise any tax, sometimes we're compelled to. In my opinion, with an income tax, we're going to have to fix the problem. An income tax, to me, makes more sense than a property tax increase. So I'll second that motion.
I have a motion, a second. That'll open the floor for discussion.
I have listened to all the presentations that are coming through here. I was on the fence as far as doing this. I'm going to be in favor with it, and I have reached out with several people in the past, John Lefevre, Paula Warden, Mike Schrader, all spoke in favor of this, along with Bill. While nobody's in favor of a tax increase, sometimes it's a necessary evil. What we use that jail tax for is to be a decision further down the line. And as I say, I will vote in support of it.
By the way, I have also talked to people, and nobody know of office holders, just people that I'm acquainted with, about the fact, and they recognize we have this problem that needs to be fixed, and all of them were like me, more in favor of a income tax, not a property tax.
Councilman Comfort?
As everyone's going to say, nobody wants a new tax. But I believe that not only is this the most economical way to begin this process of solving this issue, it also gives us the most local control and the greatest level of protection from federal lawsuits at this point in time.
Councilman Warner.
I'm in agreement with all the other council members so far. I don't like a new tax. I really don't want a new tax, but we've come to the point we've got to do something to protect our citizens and our sheriff's department. And the income tax, to me, is the way to go. I can't do a property tax. That's just way too much to step into that. So I'm in favor of the 2.2.
Councilman Wheeler.
Well, at this time, I can't support it. For the simple fact is that I've talked to a lot of people out in my area, and they don't think that they can afford to have any more taken out of their paychecks. Not that we don't need it, but the thing that kind of gripes me about the whole situation is that I think the state needs to step up to the plate and help us a little bit. I think what makes more sense is to add 1% on the sales tax and let everybody pay for it with the user's tax. And let that 1% come back to Whitley County or to each county and let that be used as the safety tax. But that takes time. I know when we go back to the legislators and try to address something like this, it takes some time to bring it up. So I'm just saying that's where I'm at with it. I just can't support it at this time. I think there's other things that we could do before we jump in and start taxing the people again. So.
I'm in opposition of the new tax for many reasons, but one, I think we still owe on this building that we're sitting in now. We're seeing higher tax rates from the school board to fund the school. We're seeing higher gas taxes to fund the roads. I think I'd like to slow down. In my discussion with state legislators, they're saying we really don't have to rush into any decisions here. And so I'll continue to be a favor of keeping taxes low, keeping Whitley County attractive to new residents. And so at this time, I'm still a no.
I myself am against the new tax. I don't see that it's a good thing anytime we implement new taxes. I don't like that. I know people that I talk to as far as constituents do not like that. But I look at the report as a very thorough report, and it really showed not only where we are lacking as far as the services that we're providing in the facilities, but it also shows what the backside of it is going to be if we do not enact this tax. I think we have more control over what those rates will be and to help and be in favor of the taxpayer if we move forward with a tax, another local income tax addition, rather than it falling back on a property tax. But I also, with Kim, agree that I think a sales tax addition statewide, kicked back to the prospective counties would be a better option. I just really do, but I don't think that it would happen quick enough for us to solve our problems. So even though I do not like the fact of having to put this tax in place, I probably would see and say that it is necessary. Did you have something you want to add?
I'd just like to ask Kim, you said you thought there were other things we could do. I'm curious to know what those are.
I just think there's other things we could try. Maybe speed up the court system a little bit. I mean, help rotate the inmates down there, get them out faster. Whatever the sentence might be, might help a little bit. That would be one. The other thing is, maybe, I don't know, I'd have to put this back on them. Maybe we're not tough enough on them. We get them in, we sentence them. Maybe the sentence ain't tough enough. Maybe they need to understand being there under, I don't know. Bill, I just think there's some things, but we could all sit down maybe look at that would help, a little bit before we start putting more tax on the people. And another thing about the tax that I don't like is, why is it just the Whitley County people that work have to pay for it when most of the people that you take are out of state, that's in jail? Big share of them, am I right, Judge? Do you?
I don't know the exact makeup, but we do have a lot of out-of-county.
I guess my point is, I had an opportunity to sit down with the sheriff over in Churubusco County. And we're known as, once they enter Whitley County, till they get to the Allen County line, we're pretty tough in this area. And I have to give Mark, you're doing a fantastic job, and so is the city, but the counties around us know that. If you go up down 30, your odds of getting stopped are a lot greater than you once you get in Churubusco and go towards Marshall. I can tell you that. Or vice versa, go to Allen County. And I think that's great, but I also think that created a monster for us, and we're looking at it right now today.
If I could just make 2 additional comments. I've been part of the pretrial task force, and everything that the representatives from the state and from the Supreme Court tell us not to count on the pretrial options actually reducing our population. It's in a lot of ways driven by the reality of the level 6 offenders being taken out of DOC and brought back to us. It's just informational. Additionally, if in fact the state legislature and the governor were to fund alternatively fund this to a way that at least matches, hopefully would be greater than that. If I'm still serving on the council, I would be the one would make a motion to remove this tax if the alternative funding came from the state.
Everyone's had a chance to speak. I would ask before we go to a vote, are there any additional comments that anyone would like to make? Okay, at this time, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, I have a motion for 2019-6. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. And it passed 5-2. Next item on the agenda, please, an additional appropriation request with Prosecutor DJ Sigler, please.
Format. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You always hate to be the guy that follows a tax increase conversation asking for money. But I'm not asking for money, that's good news. We are in a time of transition in the prosecutor's office, headed to a time of greater transition. As part of the extended conversation to the one you just had, what we have experienced over the last 3 years since I've been in office is an increase across the board. And I think, I don't want to speak for the judges, but I think they have found the same thing from their viewpoints as well, that we have an increased criminal activity, for lack of a better term. We certainly see an increase across all kinds of cases, non-support cases, infraction cases, that toughness on 30 you were speaking to, Councilman. So all of these things have added up to put us in kind of an administrative hole, as it were. To add to that problem, we will be losing a staff member, our receptionist, who's grown into much more than a receptionist, as it were, shortly to a professional nursing program. What we would like to do, what I would like to do, what I'm asking your permission to do, is to hire, once that person transitions to her full-time schooling, I want to hire her to train her replacement. Again, because our administrative operation has grown without adding staff and without adding costs, I might point out, we continue to have a struggle to get things done as quickly as I would like and as quickly as I think the community demands. So how do I fix that? Well, I'd like to get your approval to allocate some of my funds, not impacting the county general fund, but take some funds and add a part-time for the balance of 2019, a part-time person to assist in our front office operation. I've done this previously with approval from this council when we had some administrative filing work that had to be done above and in addition to what our staff was doing. But this is driven again largely by the increase administratively that we've seen as a result of the increase in case filings over the years. So, bottom line, I think the ordinance calls is a request to reallocate $11,120. That would be from the infraction deferral fund as opposed to county general. No impact to the county budget, but it would assist us greatly in continuing to serve the community. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And I would point out, too, that as I have said to this body before, and as I will continue to say, our time of greater transition is coming to a head, and I'm going to be returning to this body asking for permission at some point for an additional lawyer, an additional prosecutor, and some additional support staff to handle the influx of cases that we're seeing in the last 3 years, and that I think will continue to be the trend in the years to come. But we're not there yet, I'm not there yet, and I'm not asking again for approval on that. I'm just kind of pointing and paving the way to where we're going to be next year, I believe. Thank you.
So the amount of the $11,120 would cover compensation for the part-time employee for the remainder of 2019.
Approximately 20 weeks, Councilman.
And that's, then if you see a need or it would need to move forward past that, then you will address that in this budgetary cycle, or you will look at it in January?
It would be a situation where I'm going to have to come back and return to you in January if I determine that we continue to need those services. I'm not sure that we're going to need them beyond January 1st. We may.
And that part-time employee will be in a range of hours that no county benefits would have to be provided for that
Correct.
Position also, so it would be nothing more, as you said, out of the county general.
Correct.
Even though you are covering this transition from your funds, there would still be that door open to then the benefit package of it, but that wouldn't be in question.
It's not a question at this time, no. If we decided to add a position, obviously we'd be in conversation with everybody here, first of all, and all the administrative staff throughout the county to make sure we did it the right way. But right now, no impact to the county.
Very good. Thank
Where
you.
do you take that from?
The infraction deferral fund.
Infraction.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion, we approve the additional appropriation resolution and ordinance in the amount of $11,120 from the fund named infraction deferral 2506 to 11700 part-time.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all members present. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will move forward to the next item on the agenda, pretrial services grant, and I have Judge Rentschler and Judge Fahl with us today for that presentation.
Well, on a bright note, it's sunny outside, so, but I want to commend this body. Just sitting here and watching that, you guys earn your money, and the tough decisions that you make are pretty impressive. And the way you go about it is very amazing, and I think all of us know well represented, so. And I'm not saying that because I'm about to ask for anything, I'm about to bring some money. Just to give you a little bit of background of what pretrial service is about. 2016, the Supreme Court enacted Criminal Rule 26, which requires the counties to address a pretrial services program. As most of you know, we rely right now on a bond system, meaning if you get arrested, you post a cash bond, or possibly go to a bondsman and get a surety bond posted on your behalf. And in some very small, very minor occasions, we have actually property bonds. And that's how someone is dealt with when they first enter the criminal justice system. The pretrial services program is designed to, rather than just rely on a cash bond system, is to look at a number of factors so that everyone is treated fairly, and not just on who has a rich uncle that can bail them out, or we can talk grandma into ponying up $1,000 to get us out of jail. We're actually looking at the offender, we are looking at services, we're looking at how they should be treated, up to the point where they actually may or may not be found guilty. This is all about pretrial services when everyone is presumed to be not guilty. So when Criminal Rule 26 came about, in terms of we were put on notice of that, Judge Rentschler and I did the true judge thing, and we delegated to work to somebody else. So we asked Paula Warden to assist us, and being the fantastic staff person she is, she and Julie wrote a grant, and that grant then provided us a part-time person to create our program. And with that, we had Paula Reimers apply. I think you all know Paula. She has a fantastic background, both as sitting here on this table, as well as working with government. So we gave her very detailed instructions. We said, Paula, create a program and find a way to fund it. And then we let her have at it. And what she's done up to this point has been pretty remarkable. I will tell you that having worked with all the different stakeholders, you know, I would, and Tim and John, you've seen it. I have gained a tremendous respect for the people that I work with. The magic that happens before anybody ever gets into my courtroom is amazing. But what we're here today to do is to tell you that we then, Paula did find a way. We're still creating the program, but she did find a way to fund portions of it. And so what we're here to do is present to you, we've got a grant for a full-time supervisor or director of the program, as well as a part-time case manager. And so I'm going to turn that over to Paula so that she can explain it. But I just want to commend you all having sat through that. That was an amazing discussion, and you should also be commended for your work. But Paula?
Thank you. Like Judge Doug Fahl said, that I'm serving on as the coordinator of pretrial services, and I have a handout for all of you, and I'm just hoping that you can like pass this down. There's some statistics on what we haven't decided what our target population is yet. And that, you know, do we just look at misdemeanor C? Do we just look at B? Do we look at, level 6 felonies? You know, what do we want to consider first? And we may start small. I think all of us feel like that's the best way to go. We don't want to start the program and actually start assessing defendants without knowing for sure how to handle a lot of that. If you look at the handout, I did 6 weeks here on this first chart, and you can see the total bookings for each week, and what of those bookings could possibly be pretrial. We didn't include violations of suspended sentence. We don't want to violate someone and have them come into the jail and then let them go. I mean, we that doesn't make any sense. So also probation violations, same. You know, if you're going to violate probation, then it doesn't make sense to, arrest and then let go. Failure to appear, holds. You know, a lot of times you have holds for a different county, and we're holding them for them to come get them. So that would be another one that we don't consider. A failure to comply, failure to return. So if you look at those total bookings, the like at the top, 15 would be the ones that are possible pretrial. So in other words, they're not included in that total where you have your violation of suspended sentence. That what the percentage? Then we have the percentage of pretrial cases. So if you look at those time periods, it goes from anywhere from 28% to 65% would be pretrial cases. One of the other things we thought about is, how much time is this going to take? Do we need one person? Do we need, half a person? And the average minutes assessing was 660 minutes assessing, and that's just assessing. So you assess the defendant, and then we also have to then do a background research. We have to say, okay, is this a person that would be okay to release? And if it is, then we take that to the judges, and in a way, we notify the judges, we notify the prosecutors, we notify the defendants, and we say, here's this person, we've done this background research, and are you okay with releasing this person? Sometimes, I spend a lot of time sitting in Superior Court. And what I learned was I would look at everybody and say, okay, that's one that would be pretrial. But then I see them and the prosecutor says, I just looked at, he just has a new case in Allen County. He's done this, 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 and this in the last 3 days. Well, that's not something that I would probably know. And that's why it's important to have the prosecutor, the defender, and the judges say, we can't do that person. Then, so if you look at the last week, that could take 11 hours for just the assessment. If you look at the assessment, and then we're also monitoring the people that have been released, we're writing those reports, that's where the time comes in, and that's why this is important. Okay, so the next page on your handout, this is a really great thing to read. You know, if you want a nice summary, the Indiana Office of Court Services generates this. It tells you who the pilot counties are. It tells you just like highlights. It highlighted Monroe County. Monroe County is also a county that we've had come visit the stakeholder meetings, and that was just fantastic for everybody to see how it affects other counties. You know, what did you learn? What would you change if you were doing it now? And I know all of our stakeholders, at least I think all of our stakeholders really appreciated hearing from Monroe County and hearing from Hamilton County. Now, we couldn't be exactly the same way as one of those counties, but we're trying to take the very best from those counties and look at them. I gave you a list of all the pretrial stakeholders. And these people, I have to commend them. Our meetings are 2 hours a month, so we've met with them for 20 hours, I believe. And it's just been fantastic. Their attendance has been fantastic. Their input has been fantastic. So there's a handout for you to look at. So a little bit of my report is that, and I'm going to try and not repeat anything that the judge said. When we did that first grant, I didn't do it. I was hired to do the grant. But when Paula Worden and Julie Jensen Kelly did that first grant, they were given $18,475. So my schedule is that I've been working 15 hours per week at $17 an hour. So I've been trying to get as much done as I possibly can. Half of that day, half of one of those days in that week has been spent in Superior Court, so that I learned, you know, the different penalties, the different, you know, everything that the judge would do in with the defendant, and that was very helpful. The grant also provided me with a computer, some office supplies, and a desk, which is, you know, important to have. So our pretrial services program is being established to improve the pretrial practices of our county and to promote the goals stated by the Indiana Supreme Court. Specifically, we want to reduce pretrial detention expenses for our jail. You know, when we have someone in jail, we are not only housing them, but we are taking care of their health care. We are feeding them. So, you know, if we can get people out of there, then we're reducing those costs. We aim to eliminate the unfair and often protracted incarceration of low-income people who do not have the resources to purchase a bail bond or pay a bail deposit. When I was sitting in Hamilton County, she said, "Do you want to see an assessment?" And I said, "Yes, I do want to see that." And it was fantastic because the person had got caught drinking. That is Hamilton County, so that's where that band or that kind of thing, like they have a big, does anybody know the name of that facility? Noblesville, Carmel. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I guess they have a lot of people that get arrested. And this person was a school teacher, and it was a Monday, and she's like, you know, I just can't believe this happened, blah, blah. So we knew that she was financially sound. We knew that she needed to get back to her kids, needed to get back to her job, and so they said, you know, this is what someone we can release, because we've assessed them. We know that we're just not worried about them disappearing. We also aim to enhance the reliability of guilty pleas, and we aim to release the benefits of reduced recidivism and enhanced public safety that flow from the use of evidence-based risk assessment tools for pretrial release decisions. It is true that there are people that are sitting in our jail, and the only reason they're sitting in our jail is because they can't afford a bond out. But somebody who did the exact same crime is bonded out that day. You know, that's one of the things the Supreme Court has looked at. You know, we're holding people in court, and we're doing it, we're penalizing them because they don't have money to get released. Our program operates under the authority of the courts, and day-to-day operations are supervised by me, but I report to the judges. The purpose of the program shall be to assess the risk posing by the release of predetermined arrestees booked into the Whitley County Jail on a criminal charge, and to supervise those that are released under the authority of the judges. Okay, so once that person's released, we will determine, does that person have to be seen twice a month? And that's what we call monitoring. Does that person have to be seen by pretrial once a month, twice a month? Not at all. Do they just need to be seen via the telephone? And the stakeholders will say, this is what we want. I don't say this is what we want. They say this is what we want. I don't release people. The courts release people. And I think that's very important because, you know, the rumor has it, oh, you know, we're going to release everybody. Well, that's not the case. And I just want to make sure that's very clear. So our pretrial program goals is to maximize release, maximize court appearance, and maximize public safety. We have a better court appearance rate than the way it is being done now. Not our particular program, but pretrial is a better, you know, rate because we're seeing them, we're talking to them. One of the things that I really, really like too is that pretrial release people, you're only supposed to see those defendants that have to come visit you, you know, about 10 minutes. But in some of the cases, you can also say, here's a book, you know, this will talk to you about NA, this will talk to you about AA, this will talk to you about, you know, getting a job. This is somebody you could go to. And I think that's great because that's something that's not happening now. There's nobody that's working with them in their life, I'm not sure about probation, that is saying, here's what we can help you do. And I just really like that. So I want to know too that I am certified on IRAS-PAT, which is a primary assessment tool, and it's the assessment tool that I'm supposed to use. I'm certified on motivational interviewing. I also attended several extension pretrial services training, and I visited Allen County, Grant County, St. Joe County, Hamilton County, and Monroe County. I was learning, observing, and studying different techniques that are important in pretrial. We are not attempting to recreate the wheel. We are not sitting in there saying, well, this might work, this might work. We are opting to choose the best practices as seen in the other counties. And we are considering eventually improving our mental health assessment and possibly beginning to use a brand new tool called ODERA out of Canada, and it's the Domestic Assault Risk Assessment. And I did learn that we have that, you know, it's really sad, but we have that. On our stakeholders, we have, you know, our judges, our prosecutors, our counsel, our commissioners. We have, the jail commander, Bowen Center director, chief probation officer, city police chief, and the community corrections and more. It is a very educated group, and it's been great to work with. So, I think as far as the amount of our grant, it was $94,168. My salary would be $43,500 with benefits, and part-time case managers $26,000 with their benefits. All of the funding from the salaries is paid for by the Indiana State Office Services. So I think that's it. I also invite anybody to come talk to me about this. It is a lot of information, and it's extremely important to our county. Does anybody have any questions?
If I can sum up, well, you have a question?
Yeah, Paula, this is a one-year grant.
Yes, it is.
What happens when the grant goes away?
We also get funding for the Department of Corrections, which is the grant that I'm working on right now. We were actually approached by the Indiana Office of Court Services, who helps fund the pilot counties. But we had them so involved in our process, they were very excited to bring us this funding. And I think the reason they did is because they wanted us to, get started. But there's no way we could get started as a, 15-hour-a-week person. There's just no way.
So as the grant goes away, then how do you propose it, that the salaries be paid then?
I can answer that, sir. The first thing that we would do, this is all came about by a Supreme Court rule that was put in place. And Judge Rentschler and I are very fortunate we have an approachable Supreme Court. Chris Goff, Justice Goff, former Wabash County Superior Court judge. I consider him a good friend. Justice David's a retired colonel in the JAG Corps. The first thing that we would do is say, hey, sir, respectfully, you put this on us, now you're taking our grant away. We would fight hard to get that grant and keep that grant. Secondly, we would work with Paula to perhaps look at the Department of Corrections. Again, folks, you changed the statute. You put all this level 6 stuff back on us. Now try to help us out. So that would be our second approach. Finally, we would come to council. If we could not fund it, we'd ask council to fund it. If council couldn't fund it, then the unfortunate reality is it would be eliminated. I mean, my dad was laid off, and he was a great worker in the 80s, but he was still laid off pumping gas, and sometimes that happens. But I can assure you we will exhaust all remedies before we ever come back to council and ask them to fund a position because of our program.
There are also fees that we are allowed under Indiana code to gather. And some of the counties don't do anything with fees. They're like, it's not going to even work to assess it. People aren't going to pay it. Then we have some counties that it's $50 one-time charge. And then some do a per day charge. So if you are on pretrial and you're there for 60 days, you're going to pay so much per day. And we use those fees in other programs in the county. So I'm guessing that it's going to be the same for this county. We just haven't decided how much to have them pay. There are limits, but a lot of counties don't do those limits, but we could.
Well, if the program's in place to try to help people that don't have the bond money, how would putting that fine on them be
That's exactly
helpful
what's
to
being
them?
considered, but there is a cost to the program, and it does cost the county to have somebody work with them, monitoring them, all of that. So some counties are like, it's only $50, they're going to pay that much in 2 cartons of cigarettes. So, and they think that they don't value what they don't pay for. Yeah, we understand.
You've all heard of unfunded mandates. This is actually the opposite of that. The Supreme Court said, hey, this is a problem, you need to deal with it. Oh, and by the way, here's some money, develop your program. They've paid now for the first year. They've offered to pay for the second year of our development of the program. Who knows what happens a year from now, and I don't know if we'll be in front of you asking for money or not, or whether they'll continue to fund it, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But as of right now, Whitley County taxpayers haven't paid for any of the development of this program, and we are almost at the stage where we're ready to implement the program, and all we're asking you to do today is to approve our use of those court-provided funds to further develop the program, and we'll come back a year from now and see where we are then.
Could you address the fact, I've got the job descriptions here in front of me, that's tremendous, I'm glad to see that put in place. Have they been vetted through WIS as far as being in the range of what we're paying, or what other people are being paid for that type of work?
Paula would probably be the best one to answer that question.
Yeah,
She's one of the
actually, when
developers
we wrote the grant, we didn't have that pay scale back, so it actually came in, they approved it, or recommended it a little higher than what we wrote the grant for, just because the grant for the current level. So it is a little bit lower than what, but we don't know what council's going to do, if anything, with the.
Well, and that's part of why I'm asking where this fits in, or does this need to be added to what we need to address, or is it already fit in at the median point? So where does it set at now as far as the range for that job? Do you know that, Paul? Below the low point or below the midpoint? But it's in range. Well, then I would be comfortable with that answer, knowing that we can then readdress the mid-range issue as we go through the budgetary cycle. Very good. Any questions?
I would just clarify for any public that may be watching, this does not take the decision of who is released out of the hands of the judges. This is just another tool to put in the judge's hands to make that appropriate decision. And it allows people that are working and are caring for their family to continue to work until trial date, which I think is a very positive thing for our community, as opposed to people losing jobs and their families being put in distress over that.
You're not going to address that. I mean, we've heard the rumors, we've heard the whispers. The bottom line is Judge Rentschler and I were elected on the premise that we are tough on crime. And I know that that is not going to change. This is pre-trial. These folks are presumed to be not guilty at this point. Does not mean that we're going to get soft on crime. And I know today, for some reason, it seems like it's an expensive proposition to fund the justice system, and it is. But you touched on, in the last discussion, our reputation. And I had this discussion with police officers and folks on Highway 30. You know, well, we're on speedtraps.com. We've got this reputation of being hard on speeders. Well, that's great. Think of all the people that slow down without ever seeing a police officer. We don't have to spend money out there. We can be in the community policing it. If we continue to have a stance where we're tough on crime, think all the money we're going to save by not having to address the crimes that don't occur here, because people don't want to come here because they know they're going to get hit hard if they commit crimes. So I want to make that commitment to the community and to you all, that this is a pretrial services program that we believe in, but it in no way will impact how we address crime and how the folks in Whitley County are protected by these guys, and as it makes their way through the court system. Because we believe strongly in that, and we will continue to invoke our authority to use that to the best of our ability.
And I would say, too, to add to that, that you can look at the cause and effects of those dynamics all day long, but the bottom line is, and it has been since I've been in law enforcement in Whitley County, is that you're exactly right. It keeps the people who have the pre-mindset to go and commit a crime out of our county. They don't want to come here. The people that just happen to get caught up and they didn't have a plan to do the crime that day are the ones that, you know, that we're taking responsibility for, that may not be from Whitley County, but still it's making our county safer. And the bottom line is, I think you guys are following through on exactly what the judges did before you and the prosecutors before the current prosecutor, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I did want to say, too, that I can keep you guys updated as much as you want. So, you know, if you'd like to have me come back quarterly or, you know, as major things change, I'm more than willing to do that.
Very good. So what they've asked us for today is permission to spend the money as it's been already awarded to them. I would call for a motion.
I move we allow them to spend their grant. That's what you want them.
Do we have an ordinance number?
No, this wouldn't be an ordinance. It would just be a vote of approval for them to use the funds as they are requesting. So I do have a motion. I have a second. I will call for further discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an abatement resolution amendment. John Myers, please.
Hi, I'm John Myers, President of the Whitley County EDC, and to clarify, when I first put this on the agenda 2 weeks ago, this was still kind of developing, so this is actually an abatement request on behalf of Micropulse here in the county, and so you should have, again, these things tend to move fairly quickly, so things shift in a couple of weeks, but you should have received my cover memo and request last week that explains the request and kind of explains the benefits of this request to the county. Just so you know, I will keep after it to make sure that whether it's the current taxes or the future taxes, that we get as many jobs and people are getting paid as much as possible so they can pay more taxes to fund whatever needs to be funded. Again, as you can see, Micropulse is talking about yet another expansion at their facility out on State Road 14, talking about an investment in their real estate, so new additions to their buildings of $1.7 million, nearly $5.2 million in additional equipment, and 25 new jobs that would be created at that facility. Again, this is all to remain competitive in the local or in the global marketplace and continue to innovate, particularly in the orthopedic industry, which they're so engaged in. They're requesting a 10-year tax abatement for both their real estate and both the new real estate and new equipment that will go out there. I know with projects where we're in the TIF district, we talk about training grants and those sorts of things because their facility's not in the TIF area. Those sorts of options just aren't available to support the project. They have also requested support from the state of Indiana, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, and have not heard back from them. However, the state's request is contingent on support from the county. If the state says that there's no support from the county for this project, then the state will not provide any support as well. Something I mentioned here, which I typically don't bring up, is just the fact, the huge impact that the Micropulse has on the local economy. I mean, just the GDP that they produce. I mean, the total economy of the county. I mean, we're talking, 5 or 6% of everything produced within the county is produced by Micropulse, at Micropulse, when you talk about the total value of everything being done. And that's just a huge number. I mean, by comparison, that's equivalent to all of the production agriculture in the county, which is just boggles my mind when I look at the numbers and think about that. So you look at all the soybeans, all the corn, all the hogs, all the cattle, everything produced in the county. What's produced within Micropulse at that one location is equivalent to all of the economic growth and economic production just being produced by our ag community. So I throw that out as an example of why this is an important investment in a local company, and their success or failure can just simply have a huge impact, not only on taxes but on the community and the economy and jobs as a whole. I mean, $17 million, over $17 million in payroll a year just coming out of that one facility down on 14. I know, Brian Moore, who's the CFO of Micropulse, is here too to answer any questions, but I don't know, any questions you have of me or might have of Brian, be more than happy to do my best to answer it.
John, I know you have a question.
My usual question on it, do you give the veteran benefits in your hiring process?
Yeah, so we always appreciate veteran service. We have several employees who are currently active duty reservists that are calling from time to time. We accommodate their schedules. we spent 30 years building a strong culture out there, so we always appreciate veteran service and look to that based on our culture. So we appreciate your service. We have a flag hanging in our lobby that flew over Afghanistan.
Well, I thank you for that.
And I'd like to thank you for everything you've done for Whitley County and continued growth out there. So at this time, I'd make a motion that we approve the 10-year tax abatement.
We will have two resolutions this morning. One will be Resolution 2019-08, which will pertain to the personal property, and then 2019-09 that will pertain to the real estate request. Both are requested at a 10-year level of commitment. So would you?
I'll make my motion for both of them, the 10-year tax abatement.
2019-08 and 2019-09 for a 10-year abatement. I have a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
We have a second, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of these two motions being passed simultaneously, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just amazed by that started in a garage.
Silicon Valley's got nothing.
Several other businesses in the county showing great growth, and just an idea somebody had to do it, I think is great.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be the Bowen Center update, please.
Morning. I'm Rob Ryan, the Senior Vice President of Operations at the Bowen Center, and today with me is Mr. Lauber, our local Whitley County Director, and Jay Baumgartner, our Senior Vice President of Financial Services. Just real briefly, we're handing you out a document here to highlight some of the things that we did this last year. It's our annual report. I always like to point out that we as the Bowen Center are your local community mental health center. And we take that seriously. The majority of our employees who are here in Whitley County live and work, of course, here in Whitley County. And because of that, our staff and us as leaders are stewards of the dollars that you guys give us. Just a few things that I wanted to point out coming here today was last year you gave us a little over $204,000, right? And as you can see there's a handout in the center there. It kind of looks like this. It's specifically to Whitley County. We leveraged those $204,000 into roughly 10 times, a little over 10 times those dollars, into $2.2 million worth of local salary. We have served over 1,100 citizens of Whitley County, and we also took and leveraged those dollars and provided over almost $670,000 worth of free care to Whitley County citizens. So as much as I'm sure you love to hear from me today, hearing your local leader in MISTA is what I really like to highlight when we come to these meetings. So I guess I'd basically say, Mr. you want to just sort of share some of the things we do, and go ahead, you guys.
Yeah, so yesterday I was able to share with the commissioners a success story. I started going over numbers and I thought, numbers are great, Rob covered those, but I want to talk about what we really do in the lives that we change. So yesterday I shared a story about a 15-month success story. Today I want to share a story about a 7-hour success story. We had an individual show up already with probation, a client of ours, and then connected with DCS a little bit too. So with collaboration between DCS, between probation, Bowen Center, our psych services, the client's therapist, we were all able to collaborate, get the child to a safe place, get the client the help that she needed, and just all really work as a team. We had the judge's permission to take her to an inpatient unit, to take the individual to an inpatient unit, and then, like I said, keep the child safe. Sheriff's Department was involved. They were the ones that did the transportation. But really, in that amount of time, we saved this individual's life and took care of the child too. Made sure that she was safe. So, in saying that, like I said, psych services we offer, therapy services we offer, and then also our community-based services. You have any questions for me?
I guess this was a surprise to me. On page 2 here, it says that you guys are in 21 counties. I thought I thought Bowen Center was a statewide organization and provided services to all 92 counties. That's not true? Didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Where does the majority of your funding come from?
The majority of our funding comes from fee-for-service. When we started back in 1961, I looked this up, our catchment areas, of which you guys are one of them, was 100% of our operating budget. Today, it's less than 10% of our operating budget. I know earlier you guys were asking, well, how can this self-fund new programs? How's this going to exist in 10 years? We really have tried very hard to make sure that we're self-sustaining and that these dollars really that you give us, we leverage them into doing additional things for citizens of Whitley County that we couldn't otherwise do. But for us, the vast majority comes from, a portion comes from grants, but the vast majority comes from fees for service, insurance, Medicaid, Medicare.
Primarily Medicaid services. 75-80% are Medicaid.
And the library.
Well, what more could we do to help you strive towards your goal of not having to depend on us for funds?
Well, I mean, I guess there's two pieces to that. One, this has been over 40 years ago. Doc Bowen, our namesake, worked hard to make sure that all of the counties within the state have a long-term commitment to this. That's where these funds come from. And I guess what I would do is somewhat flipping that question around is to say, we want to make sure that we're taking those dollars and leveraging them for the projects and the needs of the local community. Because the dollars will continue to come to us, but the question really is are you getting value for those dollars? Someone, a citizen, stops you in the street and says, what's this item on this list here and why are we giving these money to these? There's other good organizations that do good work, why do we give it to them? I think that the two main reasons for that for me exist. That number one, mental illness is a stigma that no other health issue has. And really number two, over 20 years ago, I was talking to Jay about this here beforehand, there were over 30 community mental health centers in the state. We're down to 22 now. And I think that these dollars, while they continue to drop in the percentage of our overall budget, they are essential in terms of offering the things that are unique programs that maybe being not-for-profit don't necessarily help in the financial bottom line with us, but it helps with the community bottom line. And so these dollars, in my mind, allow us to do things that we would normally say, well, we can't afford it, we can't do that. We'd love to work with the sheriff, we'd love to be in the jails, but it doesn't cover its costs. These dollars allow us to do things that benefit the community that otherwise we just couldn't do. So it's somewhat of a dodge in the question, but in my mind, the real answer is those dollars allow us to do things that otherwise we couldn't do. And many other community mental health centers dedicated to other areas in the state just couldn't do it. And they've just gone belly up. We're in a great financial situation simply because we're stewards of these dollars. We treat these dollars as we do, we paid into these dollars as citizens here. So.
And we certainly never turn away anybody based on their inability to pay. And bottom line, somebody needs services, work on the service.
Out of the 21 counties that you're currently offering services in and that you cover, are all 21 of those counties making like contributions to the Bowen Center? Are there any counties that aren't?
5 of those counties are, and as community mental health centers, we're attached to catchment area.
5 of them are or aren't?
5 of them are. They do those dollars. So we have a board of directors that are representatives of only those 5 core counties. And we have made a commitment to them to do 3 things if we look at any county outside of that area. There's 3 reasons we go into those areas. So if you're not one of those 5 areas that you pay into the Bowen Center, we do 3 things. Number 1, there needs to be a need. Right? We're a safety net organization, but we certainly are ones that have heart. And I hate to tell you, but the area agencies are stretched thin around us, and I think that we do a good job in supplementing them. So number 1, they're knocking on our door and saying we need help. But number two, and this is, I think, really goes to that question that you're having, is it's a positive cash flow back to the 5 counties. So any of those things, you'll see there's a statement there very clearly. We spend every dollar that Whitley County gives us in Whitley County. And so those other 16 counties, those have to bring dollars back to Whitley County. And we then leverage those dollars to further provide services just like your $204,000. And the third thing that we do before we go into any county is we don't allow it to be a brain drain on the counties that we have. So we're not taking the best and brightest from Whitley County to go help out in Wells County. In fact, I would argue, I worked with MISTA for many years, and I would argue that we have given you the best that we have in that way. And so that's really kind of getting at the crux of that question. We're not going to turn our attention away from the counties that do underwrite us with those dollars. You are one of those. Every dollar is spent here, and we apply those 3 principles. If we can't do that in any one of those counties, those 3 things can't be met, we don't move into that county.
What surround?
State designates which community mental health center that county has to pay for. So every county pays, it's just they're mandated who they have to pay that to.
Okay. What surrounding counties to us here provide money to you for services?
So those 5 go, let's go west-east. Marshall County, Kosciuszko County, Whitley, and heading south, Wabash, and Hines.
Okay. So Kosciuszko County would be the only adjoining county? Yeah. Oh, you said, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We, like I said, being from around this area with our staff, we take seriously, we listen to the discussion this morning. We're in this with you. We're in this with you, and we really want to leverage those dollars in a way. I would always say when I look at 3 times our services, or free services provided from the dollar amount, 10 times with the salary, I would argue if I could do that with my retirement fund, I would tell Jay I would retire 20 years earlier. We really do try to leverage those in smart ways, work with your community partners, work with the government to make sure that we really are meeting your needs. And if we're not, is making sure that we say we give you the best here with MISTA, that we hear about it and we respond. We want to hear that. If we're not doing what you feel like your community's needs are, we want to hear that, and we will address that and be sure that we're doing that. So,
Is it possible to get a list of specific programs and specific numbers of individuals? That way, when we talk to our constituents, we can say, this is actually what is happening. These are great numbers, but they don't tell us anything. That email would be fine.
Any other questions?
Tell us about a success story, not naming people, but something that you did and it came out a success.
Sure. So, what I had shared yesterday, we had 2 individuals, parents of 3 children. They were referred to us, had methamphetamine addictions, came in for services. They were kind of wishy-washy about services because they were mandated at first through DCS. They were MIA for around 4 months with our persistence in trying to get them back into services. They re-engaged, showed us that they were ready. We provided the visitations for them with their children. We provided substance use groups. We provided the individual counseling sessions, also our psychiatric services with all of those combined and services for the children. After 15 months of working with this family, they are completely clean. They've actually been clean for 9 months now, have their children back in the home, and are doing great, involved in our aftercare program. So after they finish substance use groups, we provide an aftercare so they can continue going through care just as more of a maintenance. Both parents are active in that, and then children are still in services, attending our summer groups.
Thank you.
So we were able to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don, you have a question?
Yes, please. Yesterday, the state growth quotient came out at 3.5%. So shall this group expect about a $211,000 request?
It is based on, it used to be based on a statewide And they recently just changed it to, it's county specific, so I don't know if that's based on the county or the state number you mentioned.
The state growth quotient is what this group can use to expand their levy. It's 3.5%. Traditionally, your letter, generically, your letter to us would state that the state growth quotient is 3.5%, therefore, we would like to have, in this case, $211,000 next year.
It is based on formula the state sets up, and they determine the amount of funding, yes.
I would extend to you, and this goes back to the stigma question, is the more that each of you can get involved, coming out and reaching out to Mista, she can talk to you afterwards, come have a tour, have those more private discussions about, talk to me about what we do. How many families are reunited that DCS didn't have to be involved with? How many people didn't go to jails and were more appropriately provided services in home? Those things are probably one-on-one conversations that I'd encourage you, Mista's great to work with, can give you a tour of the place and really have it. If you can take some time out, we would love to have you come over to our place and have that conversation. So the invitation's open.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda, please, would be Leslee Robinson with Group Benefits Review.
Good morning. I'm Leslee Robinson from Star Insurance. We are the broker for the county. Just wanted to come in this morning and discuss our partnership that we've had with the county now since August 1st of 2015 on the benefit package, and just what we've seen as far as the trend in the healthcare. So as I said, we partnered with the county back in August of 15. At that time, we moved the services to Unified Group Services, who's the third-party administrator as well. We made plan changes, positive plan changes for the county employees. In addition, you'll see numbers in the packet. I did a year-by-year comparison. At the time, there was a pretty significant increase, and the county was also facing a pretty substantial loan because of some outstanding claims that were not processed under the plan. And looking at that, we were able to add a transplant rider to the policy, which has come into play even this year. So that has taken that $500,000 transplant off of the plan this year because it's fully covered by that transplant. So pretty level increases over the year. I will say this past year, so the plan year runs from August 1st till the end of July. This past plan year has been a little bit rough. We have seen a few more one-off claims situations, not anything ongoing, but we have seen several larger claims come through the system. So we did recommend some plan changes to the county this year based upon what we saw as far as activity, and those were implemented. Those are going live August 1st. So specialist visits did change from 20 to 40 emergency room, and it's not just county, and I did share this with county employees. We tend to see a lot of folks go to the emergency room when it's not truly an emergency room, and it's very costly. And so we made the plan change on the copay difference, and then another big change that we made, and actually we already had it in place, was we had a standalone RX Help Center. So it's a program that employees can go through to help get their prescriptions at potentially no cost to them. The awesome part about it is it pulls those claims out from underneath the county. Okay. The first year that we implemented it, it saved $120,000 due to some change in prescriptions and the way that the grants are funded through that program. We have seen significant savings, but not as great as that first year. So as of August 1st, any prescription that is a specialty medication. So I tend to think of those prescriptions that you see on commercials, because those are the injectables, those are the very costly prescriptions, at least $8,000 to $10,000 or more a month. Those will go through that RX Help Center plan exclusively. So when looking at the potential, just in the past 12 months, we're looking at another $120,000 savings by running those through the RX Help Center program, not under the county plan. Okay. Our goal is, as the broker, is to obviously take it to market. We take it to market every year. We look at different resources. I did not include this in there, but Unified, there are 12 reinsurance carriers that we take it to through Unified. Of course, some come back and say they can't compete against your current numbers, and some of them just say that's not what we want to take on, that risk. So it is taken to market every year because we want to make sure that you're getting the best reinsurance coverage at the lowest cost possible. So just wanted to give everyone an update so that you know what we do. I see a lot of faces a lot of times. You know, I'm local here in Columbia City, live here in Columbia City, and there's true value to that piece because when you're talking the medical insurance and health insurance for folks, it can be very, very delicate. But our role in Star Insurance is to take that burden off of county employees, right? We don't want anybody to be burdened by their health care. So I have folks come into my office quite frequently, stop me on the streets, ask questions, and I welcome those, and that's their engagement piece of it. And one last piece, and unfortunately Angie's leaving, but we'll work with this, whoever is appointed into her role, or Jana and her team. We want to help the county put together total compensation letters to the employees. So essentially, we give them out at Star to our employees, and it truly is an eye-opener. So essentially, we're going to put all of their income from their wages, all of the taxes that are paid on their behalf, and then any benefit or any MTO time that's available to them so that they can truly see their value to the county. So that's one piece that we're working to help the county with so that we can make sure that employees have those in their hands at the beginning of the year. So just want to give everyone an update.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is the Churubusco Library appointment. Is Rachel Ironman present? And she is not, so I will just read here for council. The Churubusco Public Library respectfully request that Heather Isles, very good, thank you, be appointed to a 4-year term on the Churubusco Public Library Board of Trustees. We feel that she would be an excellent addition to the library board. Her term would expire in July 2023. Enclosed will be found the necessary form to be signed and returned to the library so that we appoint her. So I would ask, is there anybody here that would want to speak for or against the assignment to Heather to the Churubusco Library Board?
Make a motion that we approve the request.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of approving Heather Isles to the board, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown that it was passed unanimously with all board members present. And that will bring us to the commissioner report, please.
Okay, thank you. Just like to report that our print management system we've had for 5 years right now. We're renegotiating the contract on that. We've had 3 quotes. We're working with 3 different companies on getting quotes in. The quotes are in, and we're about to make a decision, and we'll bring that to you the next meeting to let you see what we're doing on that. We just finished our health and liability insurance quote process, and Leslee has been a great help in that. We make sure that we quote that out to at least 3 different companies on that. Like Leslee said, even on our reinsurance, we go to 12 different companies and present that to them, and we try to get to the best deal that we can and to make sure that our employees are covered well. We're in the process of setting up interviews for HR replacement candidates, as we're unhappy to see our HR director, Angie Campbell, leave us, but she's going to a great job working for Trine University, and we wish her all the good luck in the world, and hopefully everything goes well for you. We appreciate all you've done. And then we also have, I don't think that we've been able to present Jen Shinnebury. She's our new commissioner's assistant, and she's been doing a good job for us. So a lot of moving parts right now, and a lot of decisions being made. We're also, we'll be presenting a CETA budget to you at the next meeting. We've finally got our CETA budget and commissioner's budget done, we'll have to explain a few things because in our budget, we've tried to be realistic in our budget. We've looked in the past as what additional appropriations we've had. Rather than just putting in numbers, we've really taken a look at true numbers on the commissioner's budget. So you're going to see some changes in there, but there's a reason for it. Other than that, okay. We do have, one thing that we have an additional appropriation request. We're requesting $28,500 for our workman's comp insurance for the simple fact that they did the audit. The audit came back that we needed an additional $28,500, and that's tied to total wages. And so that we didn't have that in our budget, so we're going to ask for an additional appropriation for that. And then also, we're going to ask for additional appropriation out of CEDAT for, it's capital outlay, and what it is, it's $212,500, but that money is money that we've spent for some economic development capital outlay in the Park 30 for the road out at Park 30, the new road out at Park 30. That money, we had to, what we're asking is an additional appropriation because we spent that money and redevelopment has paid us back that money, but it paid back into county general. We're asking that that be moved back into CEDAT.
Okay, we have two resolution requests, then one for the $212,500 that needs to be put back from county general to their budget, and then the $28,500 for the audit of the workman's comp shortage on insurance. So I would ask for a motion for either one or both of those at this time.
I'd move to approve both of them.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand, and oppose the same, and let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And that will bring us to then the minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as they were presented to you? And if not, I would call for a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
I have a motion, a second on the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown as passed unanimously with all board members present. Anything else from the audience for the good of the cause? Anything else briefly from the audience for the good of the cause? Come forward, Sheriff. We've not heard from you today.
What I have here is a trust agreement for the Whitley County Police Retirement Plan and a supplement and a trust agreement for the Whitley County Police Benefit Plan. Got these about a month and a half ago, sent it to Attorney Shipman. He said this is a special attorney that needs to look at this kind of agreement. The trustee for the pension plan is Lake City Bank. And the reason we found out we don't have an agreement is the pension plan was implemented in 1973 when they said there wasn't really much agreement between them like that. We got the projected numbers for what the pension is going to cost next year. At that time, the actuary, which is One America and McKee and Green out of Indianapolis, said Whitley County Retirement Plan has never had a trustee agreement in place. So they wrote it up, sent it to Lake City and us. Matt said he was fine with it. Lake City's legal team signed off because it's in their best interest since they're the ones as a trustee. They did do that. I forwarded it on to Thor. I had my mayor board sign off, but I need the council's approval and signature that they agree with it because you guys are the ones responsible for placing the money into the retirement fund each year.
You've seen this.
I have looked at it and I understand it, and I would share with you that my understanding is of it, and Mark has already vetted it through legal counsel, both locally and through the Lake City Bank, that this is a housekeeping error that for some reason had not been addressed, and it has not been addressed for a great number of years, and that we need to address it. So I think we're safe in the fact that it's already been professionally vetted legally, and that we are, just need to sign it so the sheriff's department can be in compliance with that.
I mean, I know on the trust agreement, a lot of it, my merit board looked at it, and I have one financial person on my merit board, that was one of 5 that understood the agreement. I know on the first agreement, page 10 is where it speaks as a county.
Could you read through it for us?
I could more than happy leave you.
That's
a full
okay.
copy.
I trust you.
What I would ask for from council today would be the permission for me to sign this to get the sheriff's department in compliance with their agreement with Lake City Bank.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And all those opposed, the same, and it passes. And I will sign your papers.
No, sit there and read it to us. If you
John, or I'm sorry, Councilman Barrett, do you have anything else, please?
I have nothing.
Councilman Overdy?
I have nothing.
Councilman Cumber? No. Councilman Warner?
Nothing.
Councilman Wheeler?
Are these dates set for the,
Yes, that was going to be my reminder. If you look inside your packet there, you have an informational sheet that shows that when our meeting is at, July 18th is when we'll meet with all the department heads, and I think your second page there will give you a time frame for all that. Plan accordingly for the day, although in the past we have gotten through it maybe a little bit quicker. This year might be a little bit slower, you just never know, but plan accordingly, and I will again request that several people are ready to go, and make sure that we'll keep them updated during the day if we do get ahead of schedule, to make this go as painlessly as possible. And there will be a lunch break in between there, so just look at your schedule and be available, be here. If you can't be here, please reach out and let us know that.
That's what I was going to ask. So is the 18th okay with everyone? I know I had kind of previously talked to Kim a little bit too.
Good for me.
I can't.
Okay.
I know originally I said I could, but I found out I couldn't.
Would you like us to try to work the schedule to, that'd be difficult at this point.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Very good, then we will move forward with that calendar event. Vice.
One quick thing, I want to thank
Thanks.
Angie for all her work.
Yes.
For Whitley County, yes.
Yes, I
Kudos.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
And I have nothing. Jana does have, I think, one other item of business for us, please.
I'm sorry, I do just have 2 quick things. First thing, I wanted you guys to know that our current max levy for this year was $6,344,316. With the 3.5% growth quotient the state sent out yesterday, that brings us to $6,566,367. So it's about a $200,000 increase that we will be able to collect in property taxes that will be distributed through our county general, health, reassessment, Cume Capital Development, and Cume Bridge. But Cume Bridge does have its own rate though. But you have to, that's a whole budget thing that comes later. But yes, that is our estimated max levy for 2020. The other thing I have is Steel Dynamics did turn in 2 CF1s for their tax abatement late. So it's at your discretion whether you, obviously, whether you approve them or not. I have them, again, they did turn them in, and they are proper, but they did turn them in late.
How late are they?
I'm sorry?
How late are they?
They were probably late by a few weeks. So, but I do think they have some change in personnel.
Is there a penalty for that?
I believe the only penalty is you guys can choose to not approve it and they don't get the tax payment for the year.
Where are they at in their abatement process on these particular items?
I believe the one is newer, or they're both newer, so it's they're probably only 2 years into it.
Which company is this again?
Steel Dynamics. But it's for their real estate. I believe it's for their addition. When they added on.
And moving forward with this, if we would sign it and say, well, it's okay, you were not in compliance moving forward, then that would put them back into compliance for next year reporting on time. So I don't know that we're really putting them on probation if we decide to move forward now and still give them their tax abatements, or whether we send a message with not, but I will leave that to the council. It's of course my position to sign those, and I will wait for guidance on how you guys would like to proceed with that.
Is this the first occasion that they've been late?
I believe so.
They should be about done doing those.
This is a new one.
It's a new one?
It's a newer one.
Okay.
And you have no sense of malfeasance or malice?
No, I really do think that it was just change in personnel and these were just missed.
I have no problem with you going and sign it. Approve it.
I think we signed
I'll
them.
let Councilman sign it.
Show me where to sign. Okay, so I would, I had a suggestion, or I had a proposal and a second. All those in favor of giving me direction to sign these two and not hold them in contempt or penalty for being late, please respond by raising your right hand. And opposed, the same, so I will sign them with the council's permission. Thank you. And George, did you have anything else?
No, not this time.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.